Greetings, everyone. Welcome to my new show called Overgrove. This is going to be a weekly news show where I discuss the happenings of the week in the Overwatch universe with Boss Beardman. So, without further ado, let's get started.
Hey, boss. How's it going?
Well, now, there's a Tree Boy Dave.
Indeed. There's a Boss Beardman.
The rumor of Overwatch 2 was on the internet.
Yes.
Everybody kind of knew about it. ESPN had dropped an article about it. Then the BlizzCon 2019, Kaplan walks out there and pulls out his phone. He says, I know what I'm supposed to say. And he makes a reference to all the internet chatter. And he announces Overwatch 2. And what were you thinking?
Well, I just wanted to learn more about it at that point because there'd been so many rumors, so many leaks that we'd got a lot of the details, but there was a lot still unrevealed, undiscussed. So exactly how the mechanics of the transition to 1 to 2 would work was unknown at that point, and it's still not entirely known. There have been some things that have been clarified, but I suspect a lot of the stuff isn't out there because Blizzard aren't quite sure themselves of how the exact transition will work. They say they want to do it, that they want to transition Overwatch 1 into Overwatch 2, but the exact specifics of it, they're either not ready to tell us or they're not quite sure themselves.
I was confused. I didn't know what they were going to do. Was he trying to say that Overwatch 2 was only going to have the graphical update, but then later on, when they came back out after the announcement and they were specifically talking about what was coming next for Overwatch, he literally sat down and said, listen, I know you guys are confused. Let me explain it to you. Everything that Overwatch 2 is going to have, Overwatch 1 is going to have. You're not going to be left out. Everything is going to translate over your skins. You're going to get the maps. You're going to get the graphical updates. You're going to get the new characters. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then the next step was, so that means Overwatch 2 is just going to be the campaign, PvE, and kind of the story mode?
Yeah, I feel that Overwatch 2 is in all but name an expansion. I feel like them calling it Overwatch 2 is purely a marketing move rather than anything else.
Right.
Because it's not really a separate game if 1 is becoming 2. I feel like in order to sell it to Activision, in order to get their sign-off, they had to sell it as a sequel. It's a negotiating tactic, right? In the end, Activision Blizzard are one company, and they all have to agree on all of the stuff they do. But by the sounds of it, I think Blizzard is more of a subsidiary of Activision in how they operate rather than an equal partner. But I'm not quite sure. That's the impression I get. So Blizzard basically needs Activision's permission to do new stuff. So to give themselves a stronger case for giving Overwatch a massive content dump, they wanted to sell it as a sequel, and it looks like that succeeded. If they'd sold it as an expansion, perhaps they wouldn't have had so much success with actually getting the green light for it. But we'll never know.
It took me a while to kind of put the nails in the kind of understanding of what they were doing. But that's what it kind of all boiled down to was Overwatch, even though it's strange to say Overwatch 2, that's why they did it, was for some type of, this is on the books, they're going to have Overwatch 1, we've made this much money with Overwatch 1, now here's Overwatch 2. Because Jeff Kaplan, during this the interview with Kotaku UK, he specifically says Overwatch 2 was 100% the reason for the sluggish Overwatch 1 updates.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Developing a game is not an easy task. It takes a lot of time, effort, and money and resources to do it. It made sense that whatever they were working on would have been something big. I didn't expect something this big. I suspected it could be some kind of story stuff. I didn't expect them to announce something as big as Overwatch 2, which definitely did come as a surprise when I started hearing about it. We did get a leak quite a few months before BlizzCon with someone quitting Blizzard and telling people that they'd cancelled a StarCraft first-person shooter and to focus on Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2. So that was the first time we heard about Overwatch 2's actual development, and that was only a few months before we had it officially announced. Kaplan made the case to make sure that Overwatch 1 could merge into Overwatch 2, so as not to leave people behind. There is a certain argument from a corporate standpoint that you do want to cut Overwatch 1 people off so they have to buy Overwatch 2, because you're going to make more money that way, right? Merging 1 into 2 gives the community the expectation that buying Overwatch 2 while they own Overwatch 1 should be an upgrade rather than a full purchase and therefore cheaper. So you make less revenue that way. But that's a very short-sighted way of thinking about it, because sure, you might make a lot more money in the short term, but in the long term, less people are going to like the game because of what you've done. Right, you've abandoned everyone that played Overwatch 1 in the hopes that they will pick up Overwatch 2. While on the other hand, if you do the consumer-friendly strategy of giving them the option to upgrade if they want to while keeping all their stuff, much more people are going to buy onto that idea, and many more people will continue to like Overwatch and perhaps buy the new content once they see how good it actually is.
And the a word that I was discussing with my chat, we were talking about, I used the phrase future-proofing. You're basically future-proofing your game because you're graphically overhauling the game. Everything is converting over to it. They even mentioned here that eventually the clients will merge together. So Kaplan made that comment that eventually, at some point, maybe even when the Overwatch 2 is released, you're just going to have one client, and it'll just say, I assume it will just say Overwatch 2. Yeah. And everything will be converted over, but it's also about which is the same thing, future-proofing your game, because not only updating your graphics, moving everybody over to it, but you're also adding campaign mode. You're adding these extra story modes, which maybe you can use that to introduce new characters, to add more lore, and then later down the line you can add a DLC. You can say, hey, there's a new campaign mode that you can pick up, and if you would like to, it's $15-$20, and it'll give you all these extra 50 hours of content that you can pick up if you want to. So they're adding just another layer to Overwatch.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's all sorts of ways they can go down that route. Yeah, as you say, they can create missions that integrate like hero teasers and things into the missions themselves and tell stories that way through actual in-game content rather than things like Twitter posts and stuff like that. Sure, Twitter posts and social media stuff is still valuable and still useful, but actually interacting with that stuff has much more of an impact, I feel.
It's a good idea. I think overall it's good. The whole Overwatch 2 thing really just kind of threw people to the side, and he immediately came out and said, I want to make sure that everybody understands Overwatch 1, we're not going to starve anybody. You're not going to have to convert over. Everything is going to go to Overwatch 2. But it is interesting that he could have just come out and said, you're all going to get this graphical update. It's just going to become Overwatch 2. In your opinion, when is Overwatch 2 coming out?
I hear that Jeff said that we'll be hearing about Overwatch 2 next BlizzCon, and I think that's all he said about that. What that could be interpreted as is we'll be talking about details of maybe a release date. So if they're talking about a release date next year at BlizzCon, that means it probably won't come out until 2021. But that being said, they might be starting a beta maybe in half a year. So maybe in 6 months they'll start a closed beta, run that for a few months, and maybe during next year's BlizzCon they'll be talking about how the beta went, how they've been integrating player feedback into the game, and how they're getting ready for a launch next year in terms of 2021. Maybe that's what he means. I don't know. It's very open to interpretation.
We all said 2021 because he specifically said, now everything you're looking at here is in development. Don't take anything you see here is, even if you play it on the floor, understand that we're still working on it. So I expect exactly what you said, probably getting closer to the 2020 BlizzCon. It may actually just all be about Overwatch 2 and all be about Diablo 4, but Overwatch 2 beta, I would imagine like on the stage, Kaplan's going to say, starting tonight, you can log in and get access to the beta, and everyone can try it out.
Maybe open beta starting next BlizzCon for people to jump in and have a go. But we'll see. It could be more accelerated than that. Maybe next BlizzCon they're actually launching it at BlizzCon. Certainly a possibility. So Echo, what are your thoughts on Echo? Are we getting her as Hero 32?
We know that Sojourn, which we've seen before, is going to be a playable hero in Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
And we're pretty confident that she's not going to be in Overwatch 1. Echo was the one that we were specifically looking at for being Overwatch 1, but they have not confirmed it. But as you mentioned earlier, and as the internet has been kind of looking up, we normally get a new hero in November, and we have a PTR coming, I believe, next Tuesday, a new PTR.
Indeed, yeah. And in a recent interview, Jeff was asked about Echo, and he used the word mysterious to describe her. Now, that's a very interesting choice of words, because if you remember in an interview with Seagull before Sigma's announcement, he used the very same word. When Seagull asked him, Jeff said, "That's a mystery to me."
Oh.
Now, using the exact same word in reference to a speculated hero could be a very strong clue to the fact that Jeff is basically saying, yes, Echo is next. Echo will be coming to the game soon. It could be just a coincidence that he's using the same word in the same situation, but I feel like it's more likely that Echo is coming very soon than not, especially since he was very careful to avoid mentioning Echo in conjunction with Overwatch 2's release. I was waiting to see if he would mention Echo in terms of being a new hero with Overwatch 2, but he didn't. And the fact that they put Echo in the cinematic and then didn't mention her at all with Overwatch 2 is very telling, in my opinion. I feel like them showing off Echo in the cinematic, plus deliberately not mentioning Echo in conjunction with Overwatch 2, plus Jeff describing Echo as mysterious, all seems to add up to me to mean Echo is coming soon to Overwatch 1.
So we should be really excited for the coming PTR, is what you're saying. We should be super excited. Okay.
Yeah.
So we should not be worried about getting our hopes down. We should put all our eggs in the basket and say this Tuesday.
It could be this
That'll
Tuesday,
happen.
or they might not be ready to release a new hero quite yet. If they want to focus more on Overwatch 2's development, maybe they delay Echo until the March release. But we'll see. I feel like while the hype train is going at full speed, it's a good time to actually release a new hero, especially if you hadn't even alluded to the fact that you were going to in official channels. Talking about Overwatch 2, Jeff did say that there were multiple new heroes coming to the game, and it seems there are at least 4.
So during the interview, Jeff was going through PowerPoint of all things, showed off Overwatch 2's new content, and through the slides there was a few immediately recognizable characters, just silhouettes. One of them was a staff wielder, a character this gentleman believed to be a male with a crooked staff. Now that leads your mind is like, is this going to be like maybe a mage, a caster, a healer? But as you mentioned earlier, that doesn't quite fit the science fiction storytelling of Overwatch.
Yeah, indeed, which may mean they're going to try to either bend the fiction a little bit to fit that, or maybe it's not a staff at all. We know that Hanzo likes to project magical dragons everywhere, so maybe they're going to stretch it in that direction, or perhaps there's some other reason for the staff and it's more techy than it might first appear.
Could be, and my brain instantly went toward, it's like a bow staff, maybe like a monk, some type of melee type of, action. And I mentioned, hey, like Donatello from Ninja Turtles. He might be could be a DPS of some kind.
Maybe
a DPS type, or maybe a melee type of healer. You don't know. Of course, this is concept art, and we may not see this for some time.
Yeah.
And then some exciting stuff. A hero that stood out the most, and that this interviewer could not take their eyes off, appeared to be a female with short hair. And standing at her knees was a fuzzy little critter with pointy ears and an equally pointy tail. Some type of phoenix fox, with longer ears and more aggressive stance. Now this hero's weapon, she was wielding a giant 4-sided weapon, which is somewhat similar to the shuriken used by, and I believe it's Yufei in Final Fantasy VII, but much thicker. Once again, your head, you're like, okay, well, a shuriken DPS.
Yeah, that does sound more like a damage hero. Maybe the pet is used in battle, maybe it isn't. Blizzard have shied away from using non-sentient animals, since Ganymede isn't shootable in the actual game, but is associated strongly with Bastion. Anna also has a parrot with her Corsair skin, which doesn't appear in the game. But the two animals that do appear are Winston and Hammond, both of which are playable heroes. So it'll be interesting to see if that pet is part of the combat itself in the game and how that works exactly.
My first instinct was, we're going to have to kill the pet. It could be like Ash and Bob, where maybe it's part of an ultimate, something like that.
Or perhaps the pet is actually mechanical and not an actual animal.
Could
just
be.
resembles a pet, perhaps. I guess we'll see. There were two other heroes, of course, which they didn't get a good look at. One of them could be Sojourn, which we've seen already, or it could be someone else. And one of them could be Junker Queen. People have been very hyped for Junker Queen since Junkertown came out. And that was a long time ago. And Blizzard have known about the fanbase's hopes for Junker Queen and they'd like from that hero.
There's tons of fan art where people have been designing what is she going to look like, what could she be? Could she have a mech similar to Diva, or could she just be this really just badass female warrior, just this melee cool thing. I mean, it gets you excited when you think about the Junker Queen, what she could do, what she could be. It's really interesting considering how much hype is on it, and Blizzard hasn't mentioned her. Like, they haven't said anything about a character about her, but everybody loves the idea.
Indeed. I'd be perfectly okay with Blizzard saying absolutely nothing about her and then just suddenly Junker Queen, That would really, really hype people up about the game. It would be a great publicity for the game if they did that. I think the only official thing they've said about Junker Queen is they have big plans for her, which usually means, we want to make her a playable hero at some point. But it's about them fitting that into their schedule and making it work with the story. With Overwatch 2, it looks like they're trying to integrate heroes into the story when releasing them, based on the comments I've seen. So if they can fit Junker Queen into the Overwatch 2 story, in terms of maybe a story mission, then it would make sense.
The whole point of Overwatch 2 was that, these unique ways of introducing heroes. So this would be perfect. You could have a campaign where you meet her and she's introduced to the game, and then they make her available.
Of course, Jeff declined to comment about these silhouetted heroes, naturally. It makes sense, though, if they're not ready to release them to the public. That's fair, because they may not be developed enough to be sure that they're coming out at all. And leaking stuff early can be very detrimental to their usual hype release kind of schedule. Jeff has said about the leaks that it basically demoralized the team when they heard that Overwatch 2 was leaked, because they wanted it to be this big surprise for everyone. And when these leaks started to get out, it just kind of ruined it a bit for them.
Now, there was something else, actually. Some of the things that Kaplan said were coming to Overwatch 1, and he said, don't worry, we haven't forgot about you. For example, you're going to be able to queue up for the training ground while you queue for a competitive match.
Yeah, and I feel like that's definitely going to help people with the, oh no, I've got to sit around for another 20 minutes just to get in one match where I get a lever and then it all quits and then I have to do it all over again. I feel like that's going to help. People can warm up for a match while they queue for it. I think that's going to help people a lot, and it's going to help keep them engaged into the actual game. He said that training range will be available, as well as custom games and workshop, and that's going to really help, especially since workshop, there are tons of workshop modes out there now that are geared specifically towards like aim training and all this kind of thing that people have made that are great for practice.
Right.
So I feel that's definitely going to help people, and I think it's fine if that's the only thing they're adding to the PTR on Tuesday, but a new hero would make that even better, so we'll just have to wait and see on that one.
Well, I'm excited. I'm 100% a sucker for new heroes. Queue times aren't terrible, but I've had several times where I've queued as DPS, get into the game, and you have like an 8 to 9 minute queue, and somebody leaves. And you're like, I've got to wait. Now I'm going to be waiting 20 minutes to play a game, and that's not fun. So if you give me an opportunity to get in and do a free-for-all, that will definitely make the time go by. And it confirms that they're not giving up on Overwatch 1. They're still going to give you quality of life improvements. So that's good. Because if we are 2 years away from Overwatch 2 and they've put all this development into Overwatch 2, and they have all these, we're going to get the same events. He says, I believe we're still going to get new skins. They haven't forgot about us.
No, of course not. And, they do care about Overwatch. They want it to succeed. Of course they do. It's their job. They're going to make sure that Overwatch 1 is going to continue being as good as it can be in a reasonable way to allow them to develop Overwatch 2 and make it the game they want it to be at the same time. It's not easy to develop 2 games simultaneously, but they'll do the best job they can. And in terms of Blizzard, that's a very good job indeed. So
overall positive.
Yeah,
overall positive outlook for Overwatch 2.
Okay, well, thanks, boss.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Tree Boy Dave, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And if you have any suggestions or ideas, please let me know. And I look forward to doing it next Friday.
Yeah, next Friday, indeed. Thanks,
well,
boss.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So thanks for watching Overgrove Episode 1. I appreciate you watching it all the way to the end. Links to the articles we discussed will be in the description, as well as links to our Twitch streams and our social media. If you enjoy this new show, please do let me know in the comments, and if you have any suggestions of topics to talk about next week, do let me know too. I appreciate all the feedback you can give me, as I want this show to be as good as it can be. So do let me know, and I appreciate any help you could give me. Thanks.